Good morning. I just want to recap something for CO 51. I can calculate the area of a parallelogram. If we look at that bottom part of our binder sheet from CO 51, when we were comparing the two parallelograms, I had mistakenly, because I was a little thrown off having to do it on the board instead of on the smart board, just trying to go with it, I had accidentally put them reversed. So it should have been 9 feet over 1 feet. So it is 9 times bigger. So you would put the bigger area on top, the smaller area on bottom. So that way you can see how much bigger the larger area is. So when we looked at this, when we divided it by 36, it should have been flipped like that. So it's 9 times, 9 feet bigger. So we want that larger area on top, the smaller area on the bottom. So that was my mistake, as I was, like I said, I'm not used to doing it on the whiteboard. I was a little bit thrown off. So it didn't seem right to me, and I went back to look at it, and I realized what my mistake was. All right, today we are going to be doing this with the document camera. So you'll have to bear with me. Hopefully we will get the smartboard up and running by the time we are back from spring break. I know this screen is a lot smaller than our smartboard screen, so I'm sorry about that, but we'll be flexible. You just tell me if you need me to go over something or to say something again if we can't see it. Today we are going into CO 52. I can calculate the area of a triangle and trapezoid. So we have done the perimeter and area of the square and rectangle. We did the perimeter and area of the parallelogram. Now we're working with a triangle and trapezoid. So it's going to be different. That parallelogram was very similar to the rectangle. This is going to be different because it's half of the rectangle. So let's look at what this all means. So the base of a triangle is the length of any side of a triangle that can be used as its base. So when we have our triangle, it could be any one of these sides could be the base. Just like with our parallelogram, didn't really matter which one was the base, because then we have to look at where that height is going to go. So the height of a triangle is the perpendicular distance between the side whose length is the base and the vertex of the opposite side. Remember, a vertex is the angle where the two lines meet. So our vertex is that angle. So if we're going to use a triangle like this, and if we're going to call the bottom one our base, we want to go straight up that perpendicular line. So we have a right angle here to that vertex where the angle is. Sometimes we might have a triangle if we're going to use, we might have to do the height outside of the triangle instead of inside of the triangle. But you would still do it the same way. So let's say our triangle is like that. If this is our base, you might have to go straight down like that to find the height. So that's something that may come up in our workbook page on how to find that height if it is outside of the triangle. For right now, we're just going to work with triangles that have the height on the inside. It's still the same thing, whether that height is on the outside or the inside, we still find the area the same way. So then we have our trapezoid. And our trapezoid is our shape that looks like this. So we have our two parallel lines, and then we have our slanted lines. So the length of a trapezoid is one of the parallel lines. It's the lengths of the two parallel sides. So our base is the length of both sides. The height is the perpendicular distance between the two bases. So if we go straight down, it's that perpendicular distance between one base to the other, one length to the other length. So our bases, and then the height is in the middle. So let's look at our finding the area of the triangle first. The area of a triangle is half the product of a base and the corresponding height. When we say product, what does it mean, Will G? Oh my goodness. Shh. Gabby and Aiden, please move to the other table. I know you might have been paying attention, but there are people at your table who are distracted, so we're going to break up that table. So you two move over. Lily. Multiplication. When we have product, it means we're going to multiply. So our area, with our algebra, that area equals 1/2 of our base times our height. 1/2 of the base times height. So just like we needed to know the area of the rectangle's length times width, you need to know the area of a triangle is 1/2 of the base times the height. So if we're going to look at how to use that, if they give us a base is 7 meters and our height is 13 meters, what equation am I going to use to find my area? Will W. So our base is 7 meters times our height of 13 meters. So we need to find out 7 times 13. 91. So now we have 1/2 of 91, which we know is 1/1. So we're going to multiply and divide it by 2, because we have 1 times 91 over 2. So 91 divided by 2. And we get 45.5. And remember, we multiplied meters by meters, so our answer is going to be meters squared, because we multiplied a meter by a meter. Let's do a second one. We know our base is 6.4 inches and our height is 14 inches. What equation am I going to write out? Remember, we don't just punch the numbers into our calculator. We actually write out the equation that we're going to do to make sure we're not making mistakes. So you need to write out the equation. Brielle, what equation am I going to write? Yeah, 1/2 times 6.4 times 14. Sometimes we can do that 1/2 right away when we have those even numbers. Do you know what 1/2 of 14 is? 7, because 2 times 7 is 14. So I could do that mental math in my head, and I just have to do 6.4 times 7. What did you get? I got 44.8. Yep. So when we do 6.4 times 7, we get 44.8. Could I have done 1/2 and then 6.4 times 14? Yep, because that's 89.6. And then if I take 1/2 of that, I get 44.8. So you get the same answer. I just did a little bit of as a mental math because I knew 1/2 of 14 was 7. So it was less work I had to punch into my calculator. If you want to punch it all into your calculator, that's fine. Don't forget to put your measurements. We had inches times inches. So my answer would be inches squared. Anthony. So
If you did like 3.2 times 14?
Yes, you could have taken a half of 6.4 also, which would have been 3.2 times 14. You would get the same answer. Okay, so you could have either number. In my head, 14 was just an easier number to work with, so I went with that one, but you definitely could have done a half of 6.4 times that by 14, and you would still get 44.8. Any questions on finding the area of a triangle? I think we worked with areas of triangle in 5th grade, so this is just kind of refreshing it for us. It's been a while. So just like with our rectangle and parallelogram, you might be given an area and one of the measurements, and you need to find the missing measurement. So let's say we're given an area of 61.6 meters squared with a base of 11. How do I find the missing height? What do I have to do, Brielle? Tell me how would I set up my equation? So let's write our full equation out first. So we have 61.6 meters squared. That's our area. And remember, area equals half of base times height. So we're going to fill in the information that we know into each section that we know. So I know my area, and then I know it's 1/2 times my base, which is 11, times the height. So now Brielle's correct. Instead of doing all the multiplying, we want to do some dividing. So we're going to divide by 11. So 61.6 divided by 11, because we want to get that height by itself. So we're going to divide by 11 and divide by 11. So we get 5.6 equals 1/2 of the height. So how do I get height by itself? Yeah, because 1/2 is dividing by 2, so I want to do the opposite. I'm going to multiply by 2, because 2 times 1/2 is 1.
Yeah, that equals 11.2.
So times 2 to 5.6 gives me 11.2 for my height. Don't forget to leave room for your measurement, because we're dividing out that 11. We divided out one of our meters. So our height is just 11.2 meters. We divided out of that meter squared, so it's just 1 meter we are left with. So remember, we still use the exact same equation. We plug in the information that we know, and then we do our algebra to get the one that we don't know by itself. So let's look at number 2. I'm going to rewrite my equation. I know my area is 108.5 feet squared. I know it's 1/2 of the base times my height of 14 feet. So I'm going to do the opposites now to get my base by itself.
Oh, we do the complete opposite. When you multiply first and we divide?
Or you could divide and then multiply.
Okay, then.
So it doesn't matter which one you do first. You could multiply by 2 and then divide by 14, or you could divide by 14 and then multiply by 2. We're going to get the same answer. So I'm going to divide out my 14. So 108.5 divided by 14 is 7.75 equals that 1/2 times the base. I want to do the opposite of 1/2, which is multiplying by 2. So 7.75 times 2 gives me 15.5 feet. for my base. So remember, we're just doing those opposites. We've done this. We did this in our last unit. We did it in the unit before, doing that algebra, working with those opposites. See how our math keeps building on itself and we keep seeing it again and again. Any questions on how to find the missing base or height? Are we understanding the doing the opposites? Show me your thumbs. Okay. We do have a work page. I do see some of us are like, I'm going to need a little more work on this, but that's why we have the work pages. So during our work time, if you're not sure, come see me and we can work through it and make sure that you understand it well. I do want to go over our trapezoids. So the area of a trapezoid is half the product. Remember, we talked about product meaning multiply, the sum of the bases, and the height. So look at how this equation looks. Oh boy, this equation looks a lot different. I'm going to write it bigger for us. The area equals 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2. So we have to add up both of those lengths. We're going to divide it by 2, times it by the height. So it's like a triangle, and it's 1/2 of base times height, but our base is the 2 lines instead of just 1. So we only have one extra step for the trapezoid. We have to add the 2 bases together instead of just using one base like the triangle. Because our trapezoid, remember, is bigger than a triangle. So we have that extra step of adding those 2 bases together. So let's look at number 1. We have base 1 is 5 feet, base 2 is 10 feet, and our height is 8 feet. So we're going to use our same equation. Area equals 1/2. But now, instead of just having one base, I have to add my 2 bases together. And then I can multiply it by the 8, by our height. So I need parentheses first. Remember in PERMDAS, we always do parentheses first. So my parentheses, 5 plus 10 is 15. Now I'm at the exact same place I was at with my triangle. I have 1/2 base times the height. Well, so I'm going to tell you how I did it in my head, and we're going to see if my answer is the same as the answer that some of us have already come up with. Okay. So I'm looking at the 8, and I know 1/2 of 8 is 4. So I'm taking care of that 1/2 right away. Then I did 15 times 4 gives me 60. Is that the answer that you had came up with, Will?
Yeah.
Is that the answer you came up with, Peyton?
What did you do?
Okay,
I
so
did it wrong. I think I did the same exact thing that I did, like the one that we did 1st, but instead of I did the 5 plus 10 correctly. I just think I did my math wrong.
Okay. So do you see where how I did my math?
Yeah.
So you could do, remember we could do 1/2 15 times 8. We could multiply that 15 times 8. That gives us 120. But then we need to find 1/2 of 120. 1/2 of 120 is 60 feet. So somewhere in your multiplying, you just might have punched in the wrong number. Will. Okay, Will, can you walk me through how to set up the equation for the next one?
So the 1/2.
So we start with area equals.
Area equals 1/2. Parentheses, 13 plus 15. And you multiply by multiply it by 6.
Yep. So we have our first step in order of operations is those parentheses. 13 plus 15 is 28. And then we have 1/2 of 28 times 6. I know 1/2 of 28 is 14 times 6. So 14 times 6 is 84. Very good, Will. So it's 84 inches squared because we have inches times inches. Josie, do you have a question? You could also put it as, you could 1/2 that 6. So you could have had 28 times 3, which gives us the same answer of 84. So remember I said you could have whichever number you want, whichever one works easier for you. You might look at it and know your factors of 6 a whole lot easier and go, oh, 1/2 of 6 is 3. So I'm going to multiply 28 times 3. We get the same answer. You could have multiplied 28 times 6 and then divided it by 2, and we would still get 84 as our answer. So there are different ways that we can get to the same answer. How are we feeling about finding the area of a trapezoid? Show me your thumbs. How are we doing? The biggest thing is just remembering to add those two bases, and then it's going to look like the area of a triangle. So if you know how to do the area of the triangle, once you add your two bases, the trapezoid is the same thing. Okay, I see that there's just one or two of us that aren't quite comfortable with it yet. Again, when we get to our workbook page, we can work on it together. Let's look at our last part. Finding the height of a trapezoid. So if they give us the area and the two bases, we need to be able to find the height. So we're going to set it up the same way when we had a missing height or a missing base for the triangle. We fill in the information we know, and then we do the opposites to solve for it. So our area is 66 meters squared. 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times h. So this time, instead of solving for the area, we're solving for the height, for the h. I'm sorry, what? It's 8 plus 14 inside the parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to do is my parentheses. 8 plus 14 is 22. So my equation is 66 meters squared equals 1/2 of 22 meters times h. So I can look at this and say 1/2 of 22 meters. I can do that in my head right now. 1/2 of 22, I know is 11 meters times h. 66 meters squared equals that 11. So what am I going to do with that 11? Divide it out. So I'm going to divide that 11 out. 66 divided by 11 is 6. So our height is 6. We could have divided by 22 and then multiplied by 2, and we get the same answer. So if I divided by 22, 66 divided by 22 would have given me 3, and then multiplied by the 2 there would have given me the 6. So you can work it on either side of the problem. You could either find the half over here, because I knew 1/2 of 22, I'm just going to take care of that right away. Or you could do how we did it up top, where you multiply by the 2 instead of dividing on the one side. Will?
So it's basically the same thing, but you just find the height of it.
Yes,
I like this.
I do too. I love solving for variables. You're just taking it one step at a time to find that variable by itself. We've been doing this for the last few units. We've worked on it and we've reviewed how to solve for a variable. You do the opposite. So if you're multiplying, you divide. If you're dividing, you multiply. So let's look at our very last one, and then we'll have some time to do some work. So our equation is area equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times our height. So we're going to fill in the numbers that we know. Our area is 216 meters squared equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. So we're going to solve for that h. Solve for the height. First thing we do is our parentheses. 11 plus 13 gives us 24 meters. You have a question, Will? Okay. I could divide by that 24 and then multiply by 2, or I could find a half of 24 right from the start. Does anybody know a half of 24? Brielle? 12. So I could say 216 meters squared equals 12 meters times the height. And now because I'm multiplying by 12, I want to divide by 12. So 216 divided by 12, I get 18 meters. And h is by itself because I divided the 12 by 12, so I have that 1. Tristan.
So, I don't know if I just heard this wrong, but in example 2,
This one? Oh, up here?
yeah, in example 2, finding
Yes.
the base of a triangle.
Yep.
Instead of dividing by 1/2, you multiply by 1/2. Is that?
You multiplied by 2.
Yeah.
Sorry. If I apologize if
Yeah,
I said multiply by half, you multiply by 2.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yep, so that's a good clarification. When we're dividing by a half, the opposite is multiplying by 2.
Okay.
So 2 times a half gives you 1.
But why would it be just only that one would change?
It's the same down here, except it depends on which side of the equal sign you're doing it. So if you're on the same side of the equal sign, you would do 1/2 times 24, right? So you're dividing it by that 2. But if we're moving it to the other side of the equal sign, that's when we do the opposite. That's when we would multiply by 2. So it depends if you're doing the 1/2 on the same side of the equal sign, you find the half of it, divide by 2. But if you're going to multiply by 2, you multiply the other side by 2.
Okay.
It just all depends which side of the equal sign we're working with. Same side of the equal sign, you do the same operation. But if you're going to the other side of the equal sign, you do the opposite operation. Did that make sense to you guys? When we were looking at the triangle, we were multiplying by a half. So then we multiplied by 2 because 2 is the opposite of a half. But down here, I was saying, oh, look, you could do that half right away. And we didn't have to move it to the other side of the equal sign. So we're not multiplying by 2 if we're on the same side of the equal sign. You multiply by a half. So you find which way you're comfortable with. Do you want to take care of it on one side of the equal sign? Or do we want to do the opposite and move it to the other side of the equal sign? Find which way makes sense to you. Will.
Are we doing what homework pages?
So our homework for today, I have 151. We are definitely doing that. That's finding the area of the triangle. So we can see we've got the area of the triangle. We talked about that. Finding the area of the base or the height. We know how to do that. Finding the area of the trapezoid on the back side. Finding the unknown base or height of the trapezoid. So, yep, we're doing both sides. So, page 151 and 152, both sides. For my friends that are watching at home, we hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon. Have a good day.